the standoff, as it were, in Nevada is over, but it's not over. At least Harry Reid has just come out and said it's not over. We had some quite lengthy discussion about this on the program yesterday, and I'd like to pick that up. Sheriff Richard Mack, who's been a guest on our program before, former sheriff of Graham County, Arizona. He's on the board of directors of the Oath Keepers movement. The website is oathkeepers.org. His website is sheriffmack, M-A-C-K.com. Twitter at Sheriff Mack, M-A-C-K, is back on the line with us. Sheriff Mack, welcome back to the program.
Well, thanks, Tom. It's good to be back with you. I'm just driving down the road, going back home for a little bit. Probably will go back, but right now my son and I have got to get back home for a few other duties.
Yeah, I understand. Tell me, if you could, let me give you the perspective that I seem to be figuring out on this, and tell me where I'm wrong. Because here we've got a multimillionaire rancher who wants to fatten his cattle on land that you and I own and pay for with our tax dollars, and he keeps all the profit from that. And somehow that has become an issue that has to do with freedom. And then you got a multimillionaire media guy, Sean Hannity, jacking up his ratings and making millions in advertising revenue, promoting this. And now the Koch brothers, through the Americans for Prosperity, they got billions potentially tied up in federal lands with both cattle and gas and oil operations and uranium mining, that if they could do away with federal control over this land, they could make so much more money. It seems to me like the billionaires are playing American patriots for patsies. What am I missing?
Well, the same thing you say about Sean Hannity, we could say about you or any other.
Well, I'm not even a millionaire, much less a multimillionaire. But yeah, I will own up to the fact that I like to do radio that is well rated.
I would love to have $1 million. I don't, but I don't think I'm evil if I do. But I'll tell you right now, I don't know where you get the financial situation for the Bundys, because I was in their home yesterday and had dinner with them. And if those people are millionaires, then I'm a monkey's uncle, because those people, I've never been in such a humble home in my life. It's small, it's run down. These people don't have money, and the government has been attacking them, and if they used to have money, they don't anymore, because the government continues to destroy them and the industry. What I would be most concerned with is this story that you failed to put in all of this analogy or that you're bringing up, and that is that why is the government trying to destroy the ranching industry? This is the last rancher out of 53. Last one. The last one, Tom. And they continue to go after these guys for the most ridiculous and innocuous reasons, and they bring out an army to go after them because of grazing fees. And not only that, but grazing fees for this family would have been an ex post facto law, which are completely contrary to the Constitution. These people have owned and run this ranch since 1877, and if you go look at the land and say, rancher, you owe me, you owe the people of this country or this state or whatever money because you're out there working this land and trying to make a living, so you're not on welfare. The government is now putting these people out on the streets, wants them to shut down, so there are no ranchers in this area, and that they're completely disregarding this man's rights to pursuit of happiness and his business interests in this area. 900 cattle does not create a millionaire, and the government just keeps going after him and after him and after him. And grazing fees should offend anybody that we charge grazing fees. Why not water fees? Why not breathing fees? Ridiculous bureaucracies of Washington, D.C., once again, overreacting and not respecting the pursuit of happiness of a common, ordinary man and his family. And these are some of the best people I've ever met in my life.
Okay, so apparently there's 600,000 acres in play here. And my understanding was about 500,000 of these acres he and his family owns, and a little less than 100,000 of it is what the BLM has that he's been illegally grazing on. Are my numbers totally way off?
The only thing I heard is the Bundys own 160 acres, and that we were trying to move the cows at one time back to his 160 acres, which would be enough for them to live on.
Okay, so somebody's been adding a whole bunch of zeros to these numbers.
But, maybe. That's what I didn't hear that from the Bundys, but I did hear that with when Stuart Rhodes and I were in negotiation, we're talking about
what is wrong with excuse me, if okay, so what you're saying is basically that these guys.
Let me add something.
Go ahead.
Okay?
Go ahead.
The other problem is the federal government allowed to own 85% of Nevada? Or should the rangelands and public lands be Nevada and Clark County lands, just as Mr. Bundy has said? The federal government constitutionally is not allowed to own all the open ranges in America.
Actually, it is. It's in Article 4 of the Constitution. You can read it yourself.
I've read the Constitution a lot, and it says they own the jurisdiction of Washington, D.C., 10 square miles, and they can have post offices and dockyards and arsenals. Where does it say that all open land belongs to the federal government?
Just a second, I'll find it for you while we're talking. Are you asserting that federal land should just be open to all of us, that I should be able to go out and find some federal land and say, hey, I'm going to figure out a way to make some money on this?
Not now, but that did exist at one time if you look at homestead laws. And these people had this ranch there way before the grazing laws were put into effect. And to go in after the law, after the fact, which is ex post facto, and both of you and I both know that is in the Constitution, and those are illegal. And they go in and say, okay, we're just going to start charging you whatever we feel like it.
Yeah.
And
here, whatever we feel like. Here it is in the Constitution, Sheriff. It's Article 4, Section 3, Paragraph 2. The Congress shall have the power, and it did, by the way, in 1934, it was called the Taylor Act, established grazing fees for public lands.
Right.
And then Ronald Reagan amended that with an executive order in 86. The Congress shall have the power to dispose of and make all needful rules and regulations respecting the territory or other property belonging to the United States, and nothing in this Constitution shall be so construed as to prejudice any claims of the United States or of any particular state. In other words, the federal government has total sovereignty over this stuff.
Okay, I know that part. However, when Nevada became a state, they came into the state. They came into the Union how? Equal footing, just like any other state. And that means the land of that state belongs to the state. Before, when Nevada was a territory, that law is valid. When they became a state, then the state laws became valid, and New Hampshire and the 13 original colonies are not owned today by the federal government. New Hampshire's 2%.
Well, there's federal land in New Hampshire. I used to own 600 acres that butted up against it.
2%. 2%. Look it up.
Yeah.
2%.
But it's there.
13 original.
It's there.
Owned by the federal government.
Yeah, it's there. But so the net here is
it's not 85. And so for the government to continue to overstep.
So your argument is that Bundy should be able to make a living off our land because the federal government, because we own too much land in Nevada.
No, my point is this. Why is the federal government running ranches out and you're not caring? They're destroying the ranching industry and the food supply, and these people have not been committing crimes. They're trying to do a business, and the federal government keeps running them out.
But it's the law. I mean, shouldn't we be changing the law? You're a lawman.
Well, it's the law. What is the law?
The law is what Congress says it is. Congress designated that as federal land.
And they're always constitutional, and everything's fine there, right?
Sheriff, can you stick around for just a second?
That's absurd.
This is the Thom Hartmann Program.
I'm sorry, we're getting stepped on. Can you stick around for a second, sir?
Yeah, let's keep going.
Okay, yeah, I'm fascinated by this conversation. Hang on, it'll be just a couple seconds. Okay, we have Sheriff Richard Mack with us. His website, sheriffmack.com, oathkeepers.org, and I'm trying to wrap my brain around this. You were saying our break hit you. You were in mid sentence. What was the thought you were trying to share with us, sir? Sheriff Mack?
Yes.
Yeah. You were trying to finish a thought there when the break happened. I'm sorry, the machine just does that automatically. I don't have any control over it.
Okay. Are we already back?
Yeah, we're on the air.
Oh, okay. That was a quick break.
Well, it's actually what's about half. Go ahead.
Thomas Jefferson said laws were nothing but tools of the tyrant. And we keep going along with an out-of-control Congress who, everything they touch, they ruin and screw up. They can't even run their own budget. They keep telling everybody that we have to keep spending money out of... I mean, we can talk about the abuses of this federal government on and on. We have a Congress that has a 9% approval rating, a president that can't tell the truth, and that continues to abuse people across this country with one way or another, and now we have this ridiculous Obamacare, and we're supposed to trust the BLM to run our lands. Why don't we let the states run their own lands? Why don't we let the states be sovereign like they are? I sued the federal government on the issue and won a landmark decision on the issue of the 10th Amendment, that the states are sovereign. If the states are sovereign, then they should be at least able to control their own geography. And the Bundys simply want to be left alone. These are good, honest American people. I've never met another sweeter, more lovable, more faithful person in my life than Carol Bundy. She's at peace. She is so precious in her attitude and all of this. And these Bundys don't want to fight. They want their ranch, and they want their rights respected. And they haven't been respected in this. And the pursuit of happiness is the real principle that we're involved with here. 1934, you talked about when they made the grazing fees.
Right.
Well, I can tell you when they made the income tax too, and it was originally 2%, and now it's like 60 in a lot of areas. And we pay taxes up the yin yang, and so do these ranchers. And we add to it now grazing fees, where these guys can barely make a living. And this federal government is destroying the ranches in this area, and I have to ask why. And why are we accepting it? And why you and other people aren't totally outraged by this and say, why is the federal government destroying farms? Why are they destroying people's livelihoods? Well, they provide great welfare programs so they can get on welfare. Well, that doesn't make any sense. None of this makes any sense. And then they take an army in there to go after these people, rough them up, body slam the elderly lady, and we're all supposed to go, oh, well, they should have obeyed the law. Well, I think we need a federal government that finally obeys the Constitution, and they should set an example in obeying the law. And if they're not going to follow the law and the supreme law of the land, known as the Constitution, why should any of us respect their policies and bureaucratic regulations?
Okay. We're going to, in about 20 seconds, we're going to hit another one of those musical breaks, and then we'll come right back, if that's okay with you. And then we've got until 28. We got until the bottom of the hour. Then we have to take up. Then we got to get off altogether because the news comes on and all that kind of stuff. But stick around for just a second, Sheriff Mack, because I would like to answer that, and I'd like to get your thoughts on the answer. We'll be right back. 20 minutes past the hour. We're talking with Sheriff Richard Mack. His website, sheriffmack.com, and of course, oathkeepers.org. We'll be right back. Past the hour. We're talking with Sheriff Richard Mack, former Arizona Graham County Sheriff and a member of the Board of Directors of Oath Keepers, oathkeepers.org, sheriffmack.com, his personal website, Twitter at sheriffmack, M-A-C-K. Now, Sheriff, you quoted Thomas Jefferson as about tyrants make and enforce laws. I think he was talking about the British because he brought into being the government of the United States, which is a whole bunch of laws. I get it that...
said government would get out of control. He was not just talking about the British. But,
okay.
He said when all power shall be drawn to Washington as the center of... When all government shall be drawn to Washington as the center of all power, it will become as corrupt and venal and oppressive as the government we separated from. He was talking about us. He was talking about the new government. He was talking about Washington, D.C.
Okay.
Let's about this right now.
Let's assume for a moment that your vision of Washington, D.C. as an out-of-control, corrupt... I mean, there are many ways in which I would readily agree with you on this, okay? Let's just assume for a minute that it's out of control, it's corrupt, that the BLM, even in this case, may have some hidden agenda. I know that there have been a lot of conspiracy theories about this. But the fact of the matter is that Ronald Reagan signed this executive order in 1986 that this family had to start paying their fees. They did from then until 93.
That brings up the executive orders.
Right, I know. I understand. They did. They paid those fees until 93 when Clinton came into office. Then they stopped. And then in 98,
orders are not law.
Right,
and orders are not
no,
law.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just laying out the narrative here. And then in 98, and then when Clinton became president, they basically stopped. At least is my understanding. In 93, stopped paying, and then in 98 they were ordered off the land, and they've just refused to leave this federal land ever since. What if the government is tyrannical, if Obamacare is a symptom of it, if the federal government has totally run amok, how is openly defying three different orders of three different federal courts, how is openly defying the law and the authority of the law the solution to that? Shouldn't the solution to that be to vote the bums out and get in legislators who are going to bring the Tea Party in, whatever. People who are going to take apart our federal government and turn the power back over to the states. I mean, or should we all just start ignoring federal law? I mean, isn't it really one or the other? Or are you calling for some kind of armed revolution against the United States? You were talking about putting women out in front. If the shooting starts, at least you've been quoted on that. I'm curious your thoughts on how this all should play out.
That was taken out of context, and it was obvious that the soldiers there and the army there were ready to hurt women because they already had. But the context of putting women out in the front, the whole thing had been diffused when I said that. I was talking about the courage of these women that were already there and that they could have stopped this whole thing. I was talking about them and say it out courageously. That no one was asking women to be shields for anybody. The militia really got offended that I was even thinking about that. Hey, we're the men. We're here. We're taking care of it.
Yeah.
So no one ever used that as a strategy, and no one was serious about making that suggestion. I want to make that very clear. But you talk about courts, and you talk about the oppression. If it's corrupt, then the courts are corrupt. I can tell you a lot of things the courts have done that have been very corrupt. In fact, the United States Supreme Court made up some weird, ridiculous doctrine called separate but equal, and they supported segregation, and they supported what was it? Anyway,
well, I agree with you. I'm an opponent of judicial review. I think the Supreme Court has been overstepping its power since Dred Scott, frankly.
The Bundys never had it. Yeah, Dred Scott, that's the one. Thank you, perfect. But the courts have never supported, like Rosa Parks, when she was arrested for failing to give her seat to a white man.
Sure.
Laws have been laws of hate and prejudice and stupidity, laws that are clearly in contradiction to the Constitution. We don't wait to vote people out that did that. Voting has not worked. Washington, D.C. is bought and paid for by corporate interests. They vote according to the people who donate most to them, and they make laws that come from donors, not from the people. And so to enforce these laws that are completely and directly associated with corporate interests are still against the Constitution. This whole thing has been, the entire Constitution has been turned on its head by these corrupt public officials in Washington, D.C., and we're supposed to trust these people who are now controlling our water, controlling our land, controlling our air, controlling our education, controlling our health care, controlling every facet of our lives from the day we're born. In fact, that was Obama's thing with Jill, the person born, controlling all the way to the time she's buried. That's not what the federal government was for. And we must respect the 10th Amendment. We must respect state sovereignty. We must respect that Nevada should own their own land, not the federal government. And the first thing that all of us should be addressing that you haven't talked about every time I say it is that the government keeps destroying the ranches. And these guys are holding on very courageously. They haven't left like all the others. And why do we as Americans sit here and let it happen?
Well, I used to live in Oregon where there's a lot of national forests, and there are a whole lot of people who would love to go out and cut down those trees, sell them, and make a profit, but it's federal land. And we've just decided as a country, Teddy Roosevelt decided he was going to protect some of our federal lands. Maybe that's the same thing with these ranchers. I mean, cows do a lot of damage.
How is that working out? How has that worked out for since the Forest Service takes over watching the forest? Are forest fires more frequent and worse now? Absolutely, because they don't know what they're doing. They don't let people go in there and clear it off. And then when there's lightning or any other spark, it burns everything. And even when local people, even firefighters who try to come and put out a fire in New Mexico just recently and in Arizona about 5 years ago, the federal government prevents them from coming in and helping and working. And we have sheriffs fighting the Forest Service because they go in with a heavy hand and start shutting down roads, shutting down access, charging people for helping clear off the land, which should be happening anyway. And just like I said, these people don't know what they're doing. They don't even know how to balance their own budget. They're spending.
Okay. Sheriff Mack, good talking with you again.